Welcome everyone to the first episode of This Week in College Football. I'm Will MD and I'm here with my pal Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports, and we're going to talk some college football and it'll be fun. How was your week one, Jeffrey?
Oh, it was fantastic. Like everyone else has said, it's a cliche at this point. College football is back, and we're all excited. And even if your favorite team got shellacked, it doesn't matter. Maybe a little bit, but you're still
Yeah.
excited that it's back and hope for week 2 to bring better things.
Well, you know what? Probably a good thing for me was seeing Brian Kelly lose to Florida State again.
Picture says it
Florida,
all.
yeah, Florida State though is for real. I mean, Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell, they're taking Florida State to another level, man. I mean, I think Florida State is going to be the clear favorite to win the ACC and make the playoff.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, the way that they played and like a lot of people have talked about, you get the right players through the portal. You bring in the right talent. You can really turn around a team. Florida State was not good a couple years ago. Mike Norvell was on the hot seat, could be fired. And like you said, Jaheim Bell, Keon Coleman, and a bunch of others, Jared Verse, et cetera, et cetera. And you see how good that they are now. They barely beat LSU in a kind of a fluky game last year, but this year they showed that they're even better. They blew out LSU, especially late in the game, and the Tigers have a lot of question marks. They do not look like they're going to more than likely have a good chance of winning, the SEC West or anything like that, or making the CFP, but Florida State for sure does, and they were very impressive.
I have to ask one thing about LSU. Why wasn't Harold Perkins rushing the passer? Like, what was BK and Matt House's D coordinator like? What were they doing, man?
I have no idea. I have no idea, to be honest. I really don't know much about what LSU was really doing in that game, especially late. Like, they looked okay early, and I thought it was going to be a good game, but there was just a lot of stuff that they got to iron out. It was not a great second half for them. I wouldn't say embarrassing, but the fact that they were favored to win, it still isn't a good look.
And we got our pal Jason Rollison here. Don't forget to sub up and hit the like button. I appreciate that, Jason, and I hope your Mountaineers get their act together and hopefully can take down Pitt. And I believe that's a week 3 game. So
save Neil Brown's job if people still want his job saved at West Virginia. I'm not sure.
We'll see. We'll see what goes on with the Mountaineers. All right. This one, I did not see this game going this way at all. I thought it could be a close Duke win possibly, but Clemson honestly looks worse than last season. And Duke's still looked pretty good, but I was just more surprised about how bad Clemson looked in this one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I said Clemson was going to win by 10. And when I talked about this game last week, I said I would not be surprised if Duke won. So it wasn't a shock to me that they necessarily won because I thought there was a chance. But like, you said as well, and like a lot of people said, no one expected the result to be the way that it was. And to be fair, if they score those 2 touchdowns where they fumble at the goal line and they don't have those 2 blocked field goals, it's a 28-27 game. So they only lose by 1 point. So it wouldn't have been that bad. But the score is the score. They lost 28-7. They made all those mistakes. They got to clean that up. But even if Clemson figures it all out, they're nowhere near as talented of a football team as they were a few seasons ago back in their heyday from 2015 to 2020. They need to get some transfers to iron out the holes that they have on their roster, get a Keon Coleman, and their offense would have looked a lot better in that game yesterday. So I know Dabo's philosophy. He doesn't like to use the portal for obvious reasons, and I respect him for it, but he needs to do it or Clemson's going to continue to slide and possibly continue to get worse because that was not pretty yesterday on Labor Day.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for Clemson that really stands out to me is the lack of wide receivers. Like, they had DeAndre Hopkins. They've had T. Higgins. They've had, just so many great Sammy Watkins. Hunter Renfrow. I can name Mike Williams. I can name so many more great Clemson wide receivers. They clearly don't have any right now. And I think coaching is a problem because I'm sure some of these guys that they have, if they're properly coached, would do better. It might be a recruiting thing too, but it's just crazy how much worse their wide receiver room has gone. They were as good as Ohio State was, our wide receivers, and now they're like Notre Dame was before Notre Dame got their new wide receivers coach. Rock bottom of the barrel in the wide receiver department. So hopefully for our Clemson friends, they can get their act together this season.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully Garrett Riley can get some new coaches that next season if it doesn't work out for the Tigers. But
Yeah,
Purdue,
and props
yeah.
to Duke's defense. I mean, they were really solid. I guess not to take any credit away from them, but like to your point, Clemson's wide receivers were not getting separation, and if they're not getting separation against Duke, they're not going to be getting separation against Florida State and other solid teams they're going to be playing in this upcoming week's games. It's just not going to be good at all.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how far Duke can go this year. But yeah, Mike Elko and Tyler Santucci had a great defensive game plan that ended up working well. And we got Jason here not wanting Neil Brown. He's like, no, he's done with Neil Brown. Jason is done with Neil Brown.
I'm sure that's most of the West Virginia fan base.
Yeah. And we have Todd, our resident South Carolina fan. Appreciated having you, Todd. It sucks to be at USC, Gamecock, Clemson, Florida, LSU, TCU fans this week. Only up to go. Can't get much worse. I agree. For you guys. That's how I felt last year after the Marshall game. So
I think it's worse for Clemson, LSU and TCU, specifically Clemson and TCU, because they were favored so heavily. LSU, that was more of a toss-up, but for Florida is not as bad because they were expected to lose. And with South Carolina, that was another toss-up. So I know what you mean, Todd. You're absolutely right. It does hurt for all those, but really for Clemson, TCU, because how they were supposed to win.
Mm-hmm. And we have our buddy Jackson here. What's up, CFB Nation? So happy college football is back.
It's great.
Unfortunately for Todd, we will have to talk about his USC Gamecocks. As one of Jeffrey's teams, North Carolina, looks very good against them. Very impressed by the Tar Heels.
Yeah, I was not expecting this. I thought I picked Carolina to win, but I thought it was going to be like 45-42. I know that that's tough to predict the game to be that high scoring in week one because the team haven't played out there on the field for consecutive weeks. They haven't really got their legs under them. But there have been high scoring games in week one in the past. And to me, usually watching North Carolina, their defense is so bad. I felt like they were going to give up a ton of points to Rattler, just like what Tennessee gave up, in the game last year to South Carolina, 63 points. I thought Rattler was going to throw for a bunch of yards, but I was not expecting North Carolina's front seven to be that good. They got 9 sacks on Spencer Rattler in South Carolina. 9 sacks. They had 17 sacks all of last season. So they got more than half the sacks that they had all of last year in one game. And I knew that their front seven was the strength of their defense, but I didn't know it was going to be that good. And maybe South Carolina's O-line isn't that great, but still it was impressive. Even the secondary wasn't terrible for North Carolina. Drake May threw 2 picks. They weren't necessarily his fault, but could have been better passes. But even the run game for North Carolina had over 100 yards. They were great all around, and North Carolina is definitely a threat to win the AC title if they keep up this level of play. I was very impressed. One of the best games I've seen from North Carolina in a long time. Very impressive.
And I wasn't even impressed that much with Drake May. He had a good game, but he wasn't at peak Drake May level. So,
and that's a good thing that they won like this with him not playing that great.
Yeah. As everybody Todd said, even the Taters loss didn't help the pain. Oh wow, man. I'm sorry you had to go through that much pain. And Jackson says the Gamecocks really look bad, but I will say App State is watching for UNC to possibly slip up on
That
Saturday.
would be a horrible loss. They cannot overlook App State. They almost lost to them last year in Boone, won by 2 points. Got lucky they didn't get the 2-point conversion. Don't overlook App State.
And
you did.
I think Rattler still played well. And the game's at 4:15 Eastern. All right.
Yeah, I think it is on AC Network.
This game kind of looked like the way that I thought it would, just because I really wasn't high on Florida, even with Utah's backup quarterback, as the Utes pretty much beat down the Gators in Salt Lake.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of those games where you look at, it being in Rice Eccles, this isn't at the Swamp, and they've got a great home crowd. Teams having to travel that far, it's always tough, specifically in week one. And I was not tempted to pick Florida when I knew that Cam Rising was not going to be able to play and Brent Keithy, but I thought that it would be a closer game. And it technically was. I mean, they didn't blow them out. It was not like they won by 30, but they did still dominate the game despite the score not being ridiculous. It was like 24-11, I think, something like that. So Utah, they did their job. They took care of business. I think that they're going to need Cam Rising back if they want to have a great season. They definitely are going to need him to be out there, putting up the stats that he normally does. That makes Utah a much better team. But Florida was no threat, and that's not a good thing for the Gators, because if they're not a threat against Utah with a backup quarterback, then they're not going to be a threat to many teams in the SEC this season, and they're not going to have a really good shot of beating Florida State at all. So Florida, they're not where they used to be. Billy Napier's got a long way to go with that program, but Utah, like you said, did exactly what I expected them to do, even without Cam Rising.
Yeah, I felt bad for Graham Mertz because, I still don't think he's a great quarterback, but we had no hope with how bad his offensive line was.
Like Rattler.
Yeah.
It's terrible. They had no run game either, and that's the thing. Like, when you're not an elite quarterback, you need a run game to help you out. That's why it was so impressive that Rattler played as well as he did with no line, because they had like -8 rushing yards, and he still had a good game. Graham Mertz just didn't have a chance. He's going to need a lot of help.
Mm-hmm. As Todd's rooting for UNC the rest of the way to make that loss look better for the Gamecocks.
Hey, maybe they'll win out. You never know. I doubt it, but.
And Utah has a 15 home game winning streak, which is 4th in the nation. Now, I'm curious because that counts COVID, right? So I'm just curious how long that winning streak is if you take away the COVID season.
It's probably a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
Because, it shouldn't count when you didn't have fans. When you don't have fans, of course it's going to be a lot easier for a road team to beat you. Mm-hmm. Home crowd is what makes you formidable.
Mm-hmm. And this was our friend Austin. I'm sure he went through so many emotions in this game, but his Cardinals did end up coming back to beat Georgia Tech. Crazy game.
I was very happy for Austin that, Louisville won. It was a really good game, but still, I do feel bad for Georgia Tech fans, because for a second there, I think they legitimately thought their team was really good. They were up like 28-13. They scored 28 straight in the second quarter. They're going crazy. Like, we're back. They're showing Calvin Johnson highlights and all that from the past. We're back like Texas, and then things just went off the rails. They couldn't score anymore. And that drive where Haynes King held the ball too long, he just stood there and he got hit from behind. He fumbled it. That play was just you can't do that. Like, you got to have more awareness than that. You can't just stand there. And then Louisville won. Good win for Louisville and Jeff Brom. Both teams I don't think are bad. I think Georgia Tech is better. You can tell that. I think Haynes King is solid. They got some things they need to clean up, but they could make a bowl maybe. You never know. But I think that Louisville, got a little lucky in this one. Georgia Tech made all the mistakes they did. Good game, but if Georgia Tech makes fewer mistakes, they could have won this one.
I feel like Haynes King already looks better than he did at Texas A&M. That is not a high bar at all, but
No, they weren't bad. He outside those couple mistakes, he had some good throws. It just going to take some more time maybe to make him have some better performances, less mistakes in the future.
Now, Jackson asked, is Georgia Tech the next Duke? I feel like kind of similar.
Maybe. It's not hard to get better in the ACC. There's not as many elite teams. You're not playing a gauntlet of a schedule like in the SEC or the Big Ten. It's easier to get better in the ACC. Look at Louisville. They could go 9-3 this year, and are they one of the 20 to 25 best teams in the country? Probably not, but they could be 9-3 and be ranked because of the schedule.
Mm-hmm. Todd's never been a UNC hater, has a lot of friends from UNC, but does not like Duke. Well, a lot of people don't like Duke basketball.
Yeah, I feel like Duke's like the more cocky incarnation of North Carolina, like by far for some reason. I don't get it, especially with North Carolina being the bigger school. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. In Nebraska.
Yeah, falls apart again for the 80th time. How many more times are they going to do this?
Man, those Nebraska fans thought this season, oh, man, we have Matt Rule. We have a better coach. We're going to be so much better this year. they're at the end of their game. I bet they're thinking, "Oh man, we're gonna win, and then
Yeah, I felt really bad for Nebraska because of the fact, like you said, with a new coach, I was really feeling with Matt Rule the way that game was going. I actually picked Minnesota to win, so it wasn't a shock there with the result, but the way the game went, it looked like Nebraska was going to win. They were playing okay, they were getting by, their defense was getting the job done, and they just kept the lead. And then for whatever reason, have a costly fumble and a Jeff Sims pick. I think he threw two, but the second one was the costly one. And it's like, why? Why are you making these mistakes? You've done good all game. You're winning the game. Minnesota's no offense, and then you just out of nowhere make two crucial mistakes. And then you've got the Minnesota kicker. He missed a field goal early in the game. I think he might have missed two. I might be wrong in that, but I know he missed one for sure because I was flipping between the Florida Utah and the Nebraska Minnesota game. But then he hits the game winning one. It was like a 47, 48-yard field goal. So it's like Nebraska just can't win right now. Doesn't matter if it's Scott Frost or Matt Rule or anybody, coaches in the past, they just can't win, and they always lose like this. I mean, getting blown out stinks, but losing all these tight games where you're one play or two away from winning these games, that's what makes it so tough.
No, we'll give it to Minnesota. That touchdown was crazy that he caught that.
Oh man, Daniel Jackson, that I don't know if it still was the catch of the week because there was a lot of good catches in week one, but that was one of the best catches of the week. Insane.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I can't. We'll talk about that later, but that's going to be a tough one for the Cornhuskers.
You never want to overreact to week one. That's what everyone keeps saying. So, like, a lot of people are now picking Colorado to go like 9-3, 10-2 now or something like that. So, expecting big things, but you never want to overreact. We'll have to see.
I think game 4 would be great for Colorado, but we'll talk about that game.
For sure.
And Jackson agrees with Todd. But Minnesota, definitely a good comeback for Minnesota. And like them and Iowa, they win the tight game. Them and Iowa do. And then,
except Minnesota can't beat Iowa in the tight game. They can beat everyone else. They just can't beat Iowa in the tight game. Iowa's the superior tight game winner just by a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And Drew Aller, I'm sorry, Jason, we're going to have to talk about this one. But Drew Aller showed why he was a 5-star rated quarterback who, for some reason, Ohio State, they picked Kyle McCord instead of Drew Aller in recruiting. But they definitely looks like they did not make the right decision, as Drew Aller looked really good for the Nittany Lions against the Mountaineers.
Yeah, even Mark was talking about that. Mark Rogers, he was like, why did they pass up Drew Aller? He's like, he's so good. And Kyle McCord, we'll have to see. But Drew Aller, why? It was funny. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see much in this game because I was watching more of the North Carolina, South Carolina game. But I did see a little bit of it. But from what I could tell, West Virginia just didn't have a chance here. I mean, I don't really think anyone thought they did, especially considering all the hype Penn State had with their running backs. And with Drew Aller, like their defense as well. I everyone was expecting a fairly comfortable Penn State win. I think I predicted 38-21, and I think the score was similar to that, but Penn State won by a little more. So West Virginia just isn't the team they used to be, back in the past. Rich Rodriguez, an 8-4 team, Geno Smith throwing for 600 yards. I mean, they were an interesting team when I was little. They were a good team, especially when they were at West Virginia. They were competitive. They're not anymore. And they're just awful, and not in a bad way either, where they're just terrible. They're just bad in a meh way. Like Jackson said right there, 38-17. So I said 38-21. So I was very similar with the score, and that's about what happened. Thanks, Jackson, for that. But West Virginia is just going to have to figure some things out because they have the potential to be so much better, especially with Texas, Oklahoma leaving the Big 12. They could rise up the ranks again. But if the coaching staff that's there right now doesn't fix it, they're not going to be there. But impressive win for Penn State. I think Penn State has the potential to have a great year, potentially on par, if not better than last year. And West Virginia is going to have to improve, or they're not going to even make a bowl game again. So, and there's Jason in the comment section. I mean, like I said, I like West Virginia. It's just frustrating because they're just not very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. With Drew Aller, man, like I know we said the same thing about Graham Mertz, but I don't know. I feel like Drew Aller's the real deal. Maybe it's because of the recruiting rankings, and he was like a 100 rated recruit, like perfect rated player.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Which
think
he's
Graham
literally,
Mertz was a 4-star, high
yeah,
4, something like that. But
yeah.
so
Drew Aller was #1 in the class.
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, Penn State winning 38-17. Jason saying Neil Brown sucked.
I mean, it's crazy. Like when you do a poll of like, for most teams, this isn't accurate for every team. Because like even if you do like Ryan Day of Ohio State right now, I'm sure a lot of Ohio State fans would rate him negatively, despite the fact he's only lost 6 games in like 4 or 5 seasons or whatever. But I think for a lot of these teams, especially the mid teams like West Virginia, if you rate their fan base for how they like their coach, it usually is pretty accurate to their hot seat. And I don't think barely any West Virginia fan likes Neil Brown. So that's of course why a seat's hot.
Mm-hmm. Brown has to be replaced before they can go at it again. Go Mountaineers. Yeah.
Probably the truth, and it's probably going to happen at the end of the season unless they get better.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to the upsets now. Fresno State beating Purdue. Now, for me, I don't think this was that bad for Purdue because when you think of the Mountain West, you think of Fresno State and Boise State. So, like, I don't like this. I mean, yeah, it sucks to lose this game, but I thought both teams looked like they're going to be pretty good. Like, Purdue can still make a bowl, and Fresno can definitely win the Mountain West again.
Yeah,
But this
this
was a
game
great
was
game.
so sad for me because I've picked against Fresno twice recently. I picked against Fresno State in the Mountain West Championship game last year. I picked Boise. I knew Hayner missed the first game against Boise State last year, and that's why they lost. But with the game in the Mountain West Championship game, I knew he was back, but I still picked Boise, and then Fresno won. Here, I picked Fresno, and then for whatever reason, right before the game, I flipped it to Purdue. I'm like, nah, I think Purdue's going to get it done. And then what happens? Then Fresno wins at the end. I saw Purdue up by like 10, like, oh, they're good. They're going to win. And then they blow it. And I'm like, no. I'm like, Fresno State, I need to start picking you, really. I do, because they're good. Hayner's gone, and they're still solid, well coached, found a way to win this game at Purdue. That's impressive. And even though Purdue with the new coaching staff and everything, they got a lot of departures from last year's team, so they're nowhere near as good as last year. Still thought that they'd get it done. They fell short, but like you said, they didn't look bad. Neither team looked bad, which is a good thing for Purdue and Fresno State, that they both look solid. But yeah, Fresno State still a pretty good team. I don't think they're as good as last year. Purdue, not a bad team, not as good as last year, but still, I should have picked Fresno though.
Yeah. As Jackson says, Jackson picked Fresno. He had said it should have been Fresno -4. And then I think another one about Neil Brown is where Virginia loses to Pitt, Brown is out.
Yeah, he's still there right now. You look up Neil Brown, he's still on the wiki page. He's the head coach. Yeah, he's not out yet.
Yeah.
His record's like 22-26 now, I think.
Mm-hmm. This was the other game. I was flipping back and forth during the noon Saturday games between this one and the game we just mentioned, Fresno and Purdue. And Todd talked about this game before. What about that Hunter pick? That was an NFL play. That was a crazy game. Just a crazy game. Not much defense, but no one expected besides Colorado and Deion fans, no one expected Colorado to win this game, but they did it. And man, Shedeur Sanders is a player. Dylan Edwards would have went to Notre Dame if Deion didn't go to Colorado, so that's a little emotional damage right there. But I still think Notre Dame has 5 great running backs that they use, so it's not that bad. But yeah, Colorado pulling it off. Shedeur Sanders looks legit. Looks like he could maybe even be an NFL quarterback. But Travis Hunter's the real deal, man. He's going to be Caleb Williams' top challenger for Heisman, at least as of right now.
Yeah, I would have to agree with everything that you said. I mean, it's probably smart for Dylan Edwards. He went to Colorado because he gets to shine, like you said.
Yeah.
If you're at Notre Dame, you're having to fight for it. The snaps, which is not wrong. That competition's great, and they always say iron sharpens iron, all that kind of stuff, where you're going to get better because of that. But sometimes the best thing you can possibly do is just be out in the field. And again, Dylan Edwards getting tons of snaps. That's going to be good for him. He's really good. And for me, I would just again argue the portal. Colorado was 1-11 last year, terrible team, and you get 87 new players. This is an entirely new football team. Essentially, you could just have this team be a new team that was created out of nowhere, just a new football team, and just put a name on it and have all these players go to that team, and this is the same team. This is not the Colorado from last year. There's nothing about Colorado that even resembled last year. It's an entirely new team with a new coach in prime time, Deion Sanders, a lot of new other coaches on that staff, and an entirely new team. Not even an exaggeration, like with others when people say, oh, this is an entirely new team, and they've got like 10 new players. No, this is an entirely new team, and bringing in Travis Hunter, who, like you said, he's an NFL player. Like that was an NFL play. I was insane how he caught that pass. Because it wasn't a terrible pass. It was a little late, but most guys wouldn't have picked that off. That was insane. And then, like you said, Shedeur Sanders throwing for 510 yards in his first FBS start on the road at a top 25 team that made the playoff last year, despite the fact that they're not the same team either, losing all the players that they did to the pros. But it don't matter. TCU was still expected to win. They're favored by 21, and he went out there and just balled out in a road environment like that. 510 yards, no picks. He was just completely almost perfect. And then, like we mentioned, Dylan Edwards already as well. Everyone played well in this game. Now, their defense is still questionable because they did give up 42, and there's a lot of really good offenses in the final year of the Pac-12. And they're going to struggle against some of the teams they have to play. USC is going to light them up. I mean, they're going to put up a ton of yards on the D. Travis Hunter might get one pick on Caleb Williams, possibly. That would be like the highlight. But the rest of the defense, I mean, they got a lot of question marks. But, yes, this is a much better football team. It shows you the power of the portal, what Deion is building there with these new players, getting them to believe. This was an impressive win. It was a great game, one of the best games of the whole entire weekend. And it does show you that Colorado is going to be way better than we thought. A lot of people thought anyway.
Mm-hmm. As Jackson said, Coach Prime is amazing. He got rid of that one-win mentality real quick. Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And Jackson said, I thought about picking against Colorado with the spread. That would have been a bad mistake. But Jackson figured that they would beat it.
Yeah, if I had to pick that, I would have said that they would have, lost by less than 21, but I wouldn't have picked them because I didn't.
And Tyler congratulates them. He's happy for Prime because all the haters were against him. Yeah, Uncle Lou was really against Colorado. He still is. He still is. He doubled down on his hate for Colorado.
Well, I mean, I get it to an extent because, I mean, it is frustrating that you can just completely rebuild a team. I mean, you've brought in 87 new players. If you didn't have the portal, there's no way Deion could have done this. If the portal didn't exist the way that it is right now, and he just became the new head coach of Colorado, and maybe he was able to bring in a couple grad transfers, but if you brought in more transfers that had to sit out a year, this team wouldn't have done this. The reason they won is because he got them to believe, and they outplayed our expectations, but it's because he brought in guys that could do it. Travis Hunter is a good player. Shedeur Sanders is obviously a really good player. Dylan Edwards is a good player. They don't win that game if they don't have those players. They didn't have those players last year. So if Deion just became the new head coach of Colorado and there wasn't a lot of these new players, they wouldn't have won. So that is probably where people are a bit frustrated if you're not a fan of Deion or just Colorado in general. But still, it was impressive because they still weren't expected to win despite all the new additions. How was it going to mesh together? How are they even going to look? So it's still really impressive. I'm proud of Deion.
Mm-hmm. As Jason helping us out here, telling us to hit the like button. It only takes a second. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that, my friend. This was a crazy game. Wyoming was down 17-0 to start the game. They came all the way back and won the game in double overtime over Texas Tech. this was one of the craziest games of Saturday. Jeffrey, did you watch it or check it out?
I did see some of this game. I didn't see a lot of it. I saw it toward the end, and when I talked about this game, I should have picked Wyoming. In my gut, I should have picked Wyoming. I was like, nah, this is going to be a really close game, but there's a lot of hype for Texas Tech. They're the 26th team in the country, and the other team was almost top 25. And I think that Texas Tech will find a way to win this game in the end by one score. And I shouldn't have done that. I should have just went with my initial gut, like with Fresno in Purdue, how I initially had Fresno and then switched. I should have picked Wyoming because they are tough to play in Laramie. It's the altitude. That environment is hard. And it's week 1. And week 1 is so much more difficult to win a road game than it is later in the year. Like if Texas Tech plays Wyoming in week 10 on the road, I probably would pick Texas Tech a lot easier than I did originally just in this past week. And they probably do win by a couple scores. But since it's week 1, I almost picked Wyoming, but I didn't. But they were solid, and they did their job. They fed off the home crowd. They fed off Texas Tech not being used to the road in week 1, and they struggled. And like Jackson mentions in chat, Texas Tech was looking ahead to Oregon.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
That Wyoming was their first game. So that's a good point, Jackson. I mean, they do have Oregon. And when you have a game like that, you know, I mean, some people were pointing out NC State. A lot of people were picking NC State to lose to UConn because they could have been overlooking Notre Dame. Yeah, or not overlooking Notre Dame, but overlooking UConn and looking ahead to Notre Dame. So it's the same thing. But, again, props to Wyoming. I still think Texas Tech's a good team. I don't know if they're, you know, the hype that they were getting in the preseason is validated or not. We'll have to see if they can get it turned around. Maybe they'll beat Oregon. But it was a good game, though. But good win for Wyoming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll definitely check out the highlights, Todd. And yeah, watch the last few minutes of the fourth and the overtimes. Yeah, Tony, of course, who does not like the Big 12, and Tim, they both told me to, hey, get in a stream here. We're going to watch the end of this game, and they were very happy to see that.
Yeah, they're probably happy Baylor lost to Texas State too.
Mm-hmm.
And there it is.
This game, if you would have taken off the jerseys, you would have been like, okay, this Texas State would have looked like how I would think Baylor would look like in the game. Like Texas State, they just looked like they had bigger lines of scrimmage, which was crazy for a group of 5 against a Power 5. Usually when a group of 5 wins, the Baylor Nest failed. They did fall apart. Usually when a group of 5 team wins, it's because they have like some crazy like skill player that's like undersized that like takes over the game. This one, like Texas State could run the ball down Baylor's throat, and they stopped Baylor's run game, which I'm like was not like I was like, what the heck is going on? This is not how this game was like supposed to work. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I know Texas State got TJ Finley, and I know most people know that, and that played a difference because he played well. But Baylor still should have won. And I'm hoping that Dave Aranda is not going to end up like Matt Campbell at Iowa State because this feels like this right now. Because I remember Matt Campbell 3 years ago. Oh, man, they're great. Brock Purdy, Charlie Kohler, Breece Hall, they're great. Like, they're way better than Iowa, and they're a possible playoff contender, and they're great. What he's done at this program that does not normally win. Like, even Iowa State recently this past draft had their first-round draft picks in like 1972 and Will McDonald. So, like, they're not usually good. But what Matt Campbell did there was great. But now they're just not good. Like, they've completely fallen off a cliff, and they're one of the worst Big 12 teams, if not the worst right now. And now Baylor's doing the same thing. I mean, you had Matt Rule. He got them to wins, and then he left. And then they were bad again. And then you talk about Dave Aranda coming in. He turns them around, doing great. And, like, the way that they played that season, they were good when they went 11-2. That season, and they beat Ole Miss when Matt Corral went down with the injury in the bowl game. A lot of people were high on Dave Aranda. Oh, is he going to get a new job? And now they're just not the same. They're not the same anymore. Like, they go out there and they don't look like the Baylor team we saw that year or the year when they were good under Matt Rule. And why is that? I mean, you could make an argument it's new personnel. I mean, Gary Bohannon was okay last year. He transferred to South Florida, and Blake Shapen, had his moments, but he gets hurt. He's actually out for 3-4 weeks, so who knows what's going to happen to Baylor's QB situation. But like I said, they don't look like the team they used to. Good win for TJ Finley, Texas State. I don't know how good they actually are, but that was a good win. But like I said, I just hope for Dave Aranda's sake that his team's not going to turn into Iowa State, because it's looking that way.
Let's look at this Baylor schedule. This is not a fun schedule to play. Next game, Utah.
Maybe they're looking ahead.
Utah at home. Probably a loss. Long Island at home.
Win.
A win. Texas at home.
Ooh. Unless Texas blows it.
Yeah. And then after that, UCF's first home game as a Power 5 member. That's not fun. And then Texas Tech, and then a bye. They could.
Maybe.
I mean, they'll probably win one. They'll probably win 2 of those, but that's not fun. That's not a fun start. That's
really hard.
Baylor was a really bad loss. Dave Aranda could be on the hot seat. I mean, if it doesn't go well, they could put him on there, because I don't think he has a huge buyout. And GJ Kinney, we have to see how the rest of the season goes for him, but he definitely looks good.
I mean, it's just unfortunate because, like I said, when you have these coaches, though, like Dave Aranda, Matt Campbell, others, even Tom Allen to an extent at Indiana, they have their little stretch there where they look good and everyone's talking highly of them, and then they just collapse.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that production anymore. I mean, since 2020 or 2021, Indiana, Iowa State, Baylor, some of these teams have just tanked hard. And it don't look good for the coaches. I mean, Dave Aranda is the one I'm the most shocked. I like Matt Campbell, and I really thought Matt Campbell was solid. Maybe he can get it turned around, but Dave Aranda I thought was just insane. I was like, man, Dave Aranda is one of the best coaches. I was like really on Dave Aranda. I was like, he's great. And then I'm just like, what happened? I was saying you were one of the best coaches in college football. Now you're losing to Texas State. What are you doing? I like you. Win again. I don't know. It's insane. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, this was just a bad week for the Big 12 in general. I mean, Texas and Houston won,
except for Colorado, that's about to be joining. If you want to look ahead, I mean,
they beat a Big 12 team.
I know what you mean, though. I'm just trying to give the Big 12 a little credit. They're adding a team that did good.
They're adding Utah too.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Todd. I don't like the new clock rules. It just adds more commercials.
I agree. It was unbearable how many commercials that there were. I was like, no, I've seen this same commercial like 5 times.
I'm like,
in a couple hours.
I'm like, listen, I tried the pimento Chick-fil-A sandwich. It was good. I don't need to see the same freaking commercial again and again.
Hey, I live in North Carolina, and pimento's a big thing in the state of North Carolina, and I don't even like it. So, I mean, I don't want to see it. I'm like, no, I don't like this. I want to just see the regular Chick-fil-A sandwich. So, they're like, you're not a true North Carolinian because you don't like pimento. I just don't like it. It's just not my thing, so.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, UTSA did lose to Houston, which is, I thought they were going to win that game. That'll probably be a good game this week.
Yeah, I think if Zachary Franklin was still at UTSA, they win. I actually would have picked him if he was still there. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, he transferred to Ole Miss, and their offense is not as explosive anymore. So that's why I went with Houston, and they held on.
Mm-hmm. As Jackson told me, he doesn't like it. He just looks like a sandwich someone threw up on. That's
Okay.
And we're on to the previews. Illinois at Kansas, Friday Night Football. This will be a fun one. This one's a toss-up for me. I don't know who's going to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, this is a very sneaky game. Considering the fact, I think the only other game that's on Friday night is Indiana State, which I'm sure most people are not going to be watching unless it's close and Indiana almost loses. And we got to watch to see if Indiana is actually going to lose to the Sycamores. But other than that, there's not another game on that night besides this one, and it's not bad. I mean, Illinois was not super impressive against Toledo. They won by 2 points. They won on a field goal. And granted that Toledo is a solid MAC team. They're not a pushover MAC team like, one of the worst in the kind of like a Northern Illinois or something like that ended up beating Boston College. So Jeff Hafley.
Get him out. Get him out.
Everything I said about Neil Brown is completely just magnified for Jeff Hafley to the nth degree. But Illinois wasn't super impressive. They did get the win over Toledo. And then Kansas, I mean, they're a team that, a couple years ago they were awful. And now Lance, Leipold, a lot of people are high on him for what he's been doing. Turn them around. They almost won the bowl game last year. So in a wild game, I think that Kansas can win. I mean, I'm not picking them yet. I don't think I can commit to picks because I'm still trying to process what just happened. My brain is still processing week 1, trying to get that out of the rear view. But before I really look at these games, but I feel like Kansas can win. It's at Kansas. It's a night game. It's going to make the crowd better, and there will be fans there. This isn't Kansas from 2 years ago. They believe that they can win this game. 2 years ago, they would have been like, oh, we're going to get beat by 4 scores, no chance. They believe they can win. So since when a team believes they can win, their fans will show up. Illinois better watch out. They're not going to just run over Kansas.
Now, I'll be fair to Illinois. Last year, they also had a slow start as they lost to your Hoosiers. So maybe they can get their act together this week and prepare for Kansas. But I don't know. They lost a lot of their secondary. Like, they don't have Quan Martin anymore. I just feel like Kansas's passing attack is going to be too much. And I'm going to give it to the Jayhawks to win by. I'll give Kansas by 7 points to win.
I mean, as of right now, I mean, I'm kind of feeling that too. Like I said, I'm going to have to really look at both these teams. But to your point, Illinois lost very key players. I mean, Sidney Brown, and you talk about Devon Witherspoon, Chase Brown on the offensive end. I mean, those are really good players. And they've replaced some of those positions with some good players, but they're not what they were last year. And Kansas is just a plucky team. And, again, they'll believe they can win. It's at night, home crowd. I mean, if I had to pick right now between I would probably lean Kansas. But I'm definitely going to have to look at both of these teams before I make a actual final prediction. But I'm kind of with you. I think Kansas by a couple points.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming on, Todd. I appreciate it. And Cantle, maybe he likes Toledo. Maybe he wants to stay for a while. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying Candle to IU if Tom Allen, didn't make it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Jackson also is picking Kansas Jayhawks 38-20.
He's more bold on them. 11-point win.
So last time Notre Dame went to NC State, this was the 4-8 year. So this was the bad Notre Dame year. And the Irish, Brian Kelly and Mike Sanford, who were leading the offense back then, they're like, you know what? It's pouring down rain. We're going to throw the football. Why?
Yeah, that don't make sense.
Why? And NC State won. But obviously, Brian Kelly isn't here anymore. Neither is Mike Sanford. Mike Sanford's long gone. I believe where was he at again? I don't remember. But this is a completely new, different Notre Dame team than the crappy 2016 one. Oh, yeah, he was the interim coach at Colorado. He was the interim coach at Colorado.
Uh-oh.
Last year after Carl Durrell got fired.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I mean, I feel like NC State's a very well-coached team. Like, Robert and their offensive coordinator's good. They just got him from Syracuse. And then a defensive coordinator, they have Tony Gibson, also good. So this is going to be a challenge for the Irish. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Notre Dame's offensive line is going to dominate the game. And it will allow the Irish to win and get out of Raleigh with a 10-point win.
I think the two things that kind of help here for Notre Dame is that, number one, this game's at noon. And a road game at noon is not as hard usually as a road game at night. The night atmosphere is just more amped. there's just something extra. There's an extra layer to it that I just don't see with noon games. I think that's going to help Notre Dame. And even though NC State, they beat UConn, and I wouldn't say they're really ever in danger of losing that game. And UConn is a better team than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
NC State wasn't super impressive in that game. And Brennan Armstrong, he's the key here.
He was their whole team against UConn. No one else really did much.
If he goes out there and has a game like he had at Virginia 2 years ago, when he was the, leading, had most passing yards of any quarterback in the nation, if he can have a big game, a 400 type yard game through the air, they can win this one. It's not impossible. But I just don't know if he's going to do that because I haven't seen that from Brennan Armstrong in a long time. He's capable of it, and I do think NC State possibly will allow him to have a better chance to go out there and have a game like that, unlike Virginia this past season in 2022 where they were awful. But like you said, Notre Dame does have more talent. The O-line is going to be, like you said, a massive, win advantage for Notre Dame. I don't think that Hartman's going to get pressured a lot. Sam Hartman, as long as he's on target, which he's been the first 2 weeks of the season, and he has a good game throwing for like 250, 300 yards, no picks, couple, 2-3 touchdowns, and then Notre Dame gets the run game established. I would have to agree. I think it's going to be a tight game because just it's an early season game, but I do think it helps Notre Dame too that they've had 2 games already.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where NC State's only had 1 game. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame, is probably one of the most ready teams to play on the road of any team in college football because of that. So I think that Notre Dame has a lot of advantages going their way. I think they're going to win by, as of now, I would say by at least 7. I think that they will win. It's going to be close, and I think NC State will play hard. Their crowd's going to be insane, but I think Notre Dame has a lot of advantages leading their way.
Yeah, I think the linebackers, Maris Lufau, J.B. Bertrand, Jack Kaiser, and maybe Jalen Sneed, who's a really highly rated recruit. He's a sophomore now. They're going to have to get to Brennan Armstrong and make him not throw it away or make him sack him or make him throw like throws that he doesn't really want to throw.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be really important.
I agree.
As well as Otter Gesame is going to have a big game. Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love and Jabron Payne, all 4 of them are going to play. Unfortunately, Devin Ford got hurt against Tennessee State.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, but
they just wear down NC State. All those running backs, just pounding those defensive linemen throughout the game. 5 yards here, 4 yards here. It makes a difference. And it takes a lot of pressure off Sam Hartman because it makes it where he doesn't have to do everything. He doesn't have to carry the team.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Drake May. He didn't carry North Carolina. The run game helped. The defense helped. That's the key. You want your team to help you win, not one guy. And if Brennan Armstrong has to be the guy, he's the only one doing anything for NC State, and Sam Hartman's getting a lot of help, Notre Dame's going to win more than likely.
Hopefully some of the wide receivers like Tobias Merriweather can emerge as well. But they haven't had to use the passes because the other teams have been like, okay, we're going to take away the pass. And Notre Dame just ran.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the other big game at noon, Nebraska at Colorado.
This game's going to be good, I think, but we'll see how good it's going to be.
The thing is with Nebraska is they're coming off an emotional loss. And the team that they're playing in Minnesota, that they played last week in Minnesota, plays completely differently than Colorado does. Like Colorado is pass. Minnesota runs the ball the second most. The only team that runs it more than Minnesota is the Service Academy. So they're coming off an emotional loss in Minneapolis, and they're playing a completely different team. So I feel like this one could be Colorado big. Colorado could win this game by like 17 points.
Yeah, the only thing that's keeping me from just automatically assuming Colorado is going to win this game by, a big amount, like a 17-21, is because of the fact Nebraska, and Jackson says it right there. I feel like Nebraska going to lose another close game. That's all they lose. That's all that Nebraska lose. It doesn't like you look at that season, they went 3-9. It didn't matter if they played Illinois. It didn't matter if they played Ohio State. They lost by less than 10. They lost to Ohio State by 9 points that season. I watched the entire game. They were competitive going out there doing it. And against Michigan, they lost by like 5 or 6. And then they also lost to mediocre Big Ten teams by the same score. So to me, I'm just like, even though Colorado has, gone out there, beat TCU on the road, they're ranked now, and I'm sure that the line's going to be heavily swinging Colorado's way. This is Nebraska. They don't lose in blowout fashion. They lose by 3. They lose by 7. They lose by 9. So, and the fact Colorado coming off an emotional win like that, like you said, can they overlook this team? Because they're going to be like, well, Nebraska, they only scored 10 points. We can blow them out. We scored 45. So, I mean, I don't think Deion's going to I think Deion's going to hammer that home. Don't overlook Nebraska. They're better than what they showed, blah, 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 blah. You're going to have to play well to win. We're still not a proven team yet. Just because we knocked off one team doesn't mean we're suddenly here now. We got to keep proving it. So I'm sure Deion's going to hammer that message home. And this game's in Boulder. And again, because Colorado just won that game against TCU, their fans are going to be insane. They're going to be going crazy like they're going to win it all this year like it's 1990. So, I mean, it's going to be hard for Nebraska here. It's a tough spot, and I'm not more than likely going to even consider picking them here. I'm going Colorado, but I just think it's going to be close. And until Nebraska starts to get blown out, I'm just going to keep thinking Nebraska's going to lose by 7 because that's just what they do.
Oh man, that 1990 Colorado team, man. Notre Dame should have won that game, man. That was the ref said there was like a clip or block in the back, and there was no clip or block.
The
in the
ref.
Back. We're like, what the heck?
Always
man?
the ref. Oh
like,
man,
freaking ref.
Yeah. It's so bad sometimes. I mean, still Penn State fans this day say that the ref should have negated Penix's 2-point conversion. So, hey, I mean, it's the ref. It's always the ref.
Freaking ref. At least they aren't losing to Georgia Southern. I agree, Jackson.
Yes.
Well, we're going to get a little scuff now. We don't have slides for the rest of these games. So I'm just going to pull up the ESPN tab. And we're going to look at some games. Jeffrey, what about this Purdue-Virginia Tech game? I feel like whoever wins this game can make a bowl game, and whoever loses, probably it's going to be tough.
I mean, this is – I always say sneaky good game, but it is a sneaky good game. I mean, Virginia Tech finally got the Old Dominion snot off their back. They beat them. I was like, third time's a charm. I'm going Virginia Tech. I think they're going to beat Old Dominion this time. They've lost the last 2 times to them. There was no escalator incident this time. They were good to go. And, it's at home for Virginia Tech. Purdue going on the road. I mean, this is not an easy game. And Purdue lost to Fresno. I know that probably the perception here is that Virginia Tech might win because they won and Purdue lost, but Purdue didn't lose to a bad team either. Fresno's solid. I feel like Purdue probably has a little more talent, and they didn't look bad against Fresno. I probably will go Purdue as of now by 3. My mind could change. I'm really going to have to take a deep dive on Virginia Tech because I didn't really see much of that Old Dominion game. I'm going to have to really look at the roster. But as of now, I would probably say Purdue by 3. That's, again, subject to change. But Virginia Tech, definitely it's already an improvement because they beat Old Dominion, something they couldn't do in the last few seasons. So, But I think Purdue by 3.
Yeah, and I mean, they weren't like they were in the Beamer Ball days. And I know Virginia Tech has gotten like some good transfer portal receivers. As they were the lowest scoring team in the Power 5 last year, even lower than Iowa. So
that's not good. You never want to be the worst in anything.
Yeah. So hopefully the Hokies can win. I don't know. Since my sister goes to Tech, I'll give it 2017 Virginia Tech. But
I'm going to have to really look at this game, though. I'm serious because I'm saying Purdue by 3 right now, but my mind could shift just like with Fresno. Once I make a final prediction, I stick to it. But my early prediction's Purdue by 3.
In another sneaky good game, Vanderbilt, Wake Forest.
Oof. This is like the ultimate window here. It's like, okay, Notre Dame, NC State, headliner, but man, these are good games here. Like if you're a football fan, just loves games and you just love games that you think can be good, then this is your window. Because I'm like Vanderbilt, Wake Forest. This could be good. I'm like, you've got a Wake team that's usually 8-4, usually 7-5, all that with Dave Clawson, but they don't have Sam Hartman anymore because he's with Notre Dame. So how good are they? Are they, going to be a team that's going to take a step back? And then Vanderbilt, they're better. I mean, they're a team that beat Kentucky and Florida last year. Granted, Florida was not good, and Kentucky played like the worst game that I've ever seen under Mark Stoops in that game. But still, Vanderbilt won those 2 games. So, I mean, I think that Vanderbilt has a legitimate shot, but it is in Winston-Salem. That's going to be difficult for them. I think it's going to be hard for them to win this one because it's on the road. They played both their games at home to start the season. I'd probably go with Wake by 7, but Vanderbilt can win this one.
Yeah, I was thinking Wake by 7 as well, but it'll be a good game.
And Virginia Tech, actually, it's a pick 'em because they're favored by 3 against Purdue, which usually 3-point spread is the difference. So, and Wake's favored by 10.
Utah and Baylor. Must win for Baylor in Waco.
The funny thing about it is, and I don't like week 1 overreactions. You know, I try not to take the result of week 1. I try to just shove it out the window. Just it doesn't matter. But seriously, if Baylor wins against Texas State by 40-0, like they just win like you're expecting them to, like every other team against a team like that, I would probably be upset alert here. I would be legitimately leaning Baylor because, again, I'm telling you, you don't know how high I was on Dave Aranda a year and a half ago. I'm still like, Dave Aranda was my guy. I was like, man, this dude is awesome. His team is great. They play so hard. Look at that performance against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. Look at this guy. Look at his team. And then now they're just a shell of what they were. I started picking against them in that Kansas State game last year. You remember all you guys picked Baylor? I went K-State. And Jack's like, Barrett says, you got to believe Baylor at home. I'm like, no, I'm going Kansas State. I'm not liking where Baylor's trending here. And then K-State won, and they were awful then last season. And it's like right here. I think that if they beat Texas State 40-0, I would legitimately consider Baylor. But even though Utah doesn't have Cam Rising, I'm not high on Baylor right now at all. So I'm going with, especially Blake Shapen being out. And I don't know how their backup quarterback is. I'm going with Utah by maybe 14.
Bro, you keep picking the same scoreline as I did. I was going to go Utah by 14, man. All right.
Great minds think alike. That's what Jackson would say.
Utah, yeah, there's going to be a great big game in the Big 12. And, yeah, I mean, I like Dave Aranda too, man. But, oh, man, we're going back to the dark ages of Baylor football, man. We're going back to the dark ages.
I think 95-09 Baylor, though, was still better than Indiana from 93-08. They were bad. Like, outside of Anton Randall, they were just bad. They were like 1-11 every year.
They had like one good year, I think, in there where they did well in the Big Ten. I think it was 95 they did well, but
it's crazy. I hope it's a good game, though.
Yeah. This could be a sneaky good game. JMU at Virginia.
Yeah, and James Madison's favored by 6. So, I mean, I'm inclined to just pick James Madison because of the spread, but I mean, Virginia.
It's going to be an emotional game for Virginia. It's their first game since like the players died. First home game since the players died. So.
That's true, and they're going to honor them. So maybe that makes them very motivated, and it's an in-state rivalry too because
it's an hour drive. That's an hour drive from Harrisonburg to Charlottesville. That's only like an hour difference.
So if Virginia plays hard for their fallen teammates, rest in peace to all those guys. That was sad. That was legitimately very sad. So I hope they play hard. Like I hope Virginia just plays real. Like when Utah had remember those 2 players for Utah that unfortunately got shot or whatever and all that. That was just awful that year. And they went out there, and I don't remember who they played, but they played so hard. I forgot who it was, but when they were honoring them and talking about it on game day, it's just so sad. It's stuff like that's it's just ridiculous. But Virginia, if they play hard for those guys, they can win. And I mean, they're the better team you would think on paper because
they're JMU just better coached. I think they have very good coaches.
So, and they just joined, the FBS very recently. So, I mean, everything makes me want to go James Madison because of that. Better coach, they're 1-0, Virginia's 0-1. But it is because of the, remembering their teammates. I don't know. I mean, Virginia by 3, I mean, I guess. Maybe they'll do it.
Yeah, it'll be a good game. I'll go JMU by 7, but
I want to go James Madison, but now that I think about Virginia, I'm gonna have to flip flop on that one.
Right.
Virginia by 3 right now, but my mind can change.
All right, we get into this window again.
Ooh, this is another good window.
Ole Miss and Tulane.
I love this game right here.
I think they're pretty equal.
The thing that sucks with games like this because they're useless. They're completely useless for like an Ole Miss. It doesn't help them at all. This isn't basketball where you play a good non-conference opponent and it helps you make the tournament. This game does not help Ole Miss. But darn, this is a good game. You're playing Tulane on the road. Like, this is unbelievable here. You got Ole Miss playing at Tulane. This is a dream game here.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic game that does Ole Miss no good at all whatsoever. I am looking forward to this one. And I know I got a lot of people that I know that like Ole Miss in my family, so like I'm inclined to just pick them. But I'm telling you, if Tulane had Tyjae Spears, I'm picking Tulane. That guy was
Michael Pratt's still there.
He's still there. But if you have Michael Pratt and Tyjae Spears, oh yeah, I'm picking Green Wave. But but see, like you got Frank Harris, Zachary Franklin at UTSA. They don't have Zachary Franklin anymore. They lost to Houston. So I'm just not as inclined on Tulane without Tyjae Spears. Michael Pratt's going to be really good, and he's one of those guys that can put a team on his back, an entire team. He's that good. Ole Miss could lose this one, but they were really good, even though it was against Mercer. They gave Mercer no mercy. I'm going to go with Ole Miss by 7. I think they'll squeak this one out, but I would not be surprised if Tulane won. Good game.
Oh, man. I really want Tulane to win. I'm going to go Tulane by 3.
Ooh.
I really want to be pulling for Tulane, man.
Look at Jackson. Maybe Tulane can go back to the SEC if they win on Saturday. Oh, man, that's funny. That's a good one.
Oh, Troy was talking about that Troy and K-State game could be sneaky good, too.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I'll probably go K-State on that one by 14, 17.
Yeah, maybe Tulane can go back to the SEC. Yeah, it feels closer than 7 for sure. Now, this Texas A&M Miami game, the teams that used to be good bowl, and also spent a lot of money, and also the Money Bowl as well, NIL Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame that this game right here is going to get tons more coverage, despite the fact that the actual good game of the slate's Ole Miss Tulane. That's the game right there. But no, it's on ESPN2, and it's a throwaway. It doesn't matter. It matters, and boy, it matters. But A&M Miami, I remember this game last year. It was a horrible football game. It was just horrible. Both teams, like everyone's like, this is Miami, this is Texas A&M, and it's a great game. And I'm watching this game, and I'm like, yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's like 17-14. Both teams look like they shouldn't even be in bowl contention, which neither made a bowl. I mean, they were horrible. Like, and A&M won to get them back on track after the App State loss, but man, that game was terrible. And I'm not really expecting much more out of this year. I mean, you've got on there A&M by 4.5, and the over/under is 51. I mean, it's hard to bet the over on this one. I mean, maybe it could go over if both teams are just dramatically improved, but last year it was a very low scoring game. I don't know. Jackson says Miami won. Austin Jim usually can't get it down the road. I don't know. I mean, that's true, but Miami chokes at home a lot.
Yeah.
Like that you talk about a team that chokes at home. That's Miami. Yeah. So where you're talking about a team that stinks on the road versus a team that chokes at home. Who you got? I don't even know who to pick. Who you got, man? I'm letting you pick first this time.
Connor Wegman's getting a lot of hype for A&M fans. A&M fans are really hyping up Connor Wegman. I'm going to go A&M by 3. I don't know, man.
I was going to say the same. I was going to pick A&M by 3 or 7. I mean, I don't trust the U. I just do not trust the U at all. Like, I know they did beat Miami, Ohio. They beat Miami, Ohio, so the meme wasn't real that Miami, Ohio is better than Miami of Florida, so that didn't happen. But if Miami wins this game, then I will start to feel more confident about Miami. But I picked Miami like 4 times last year, and they lost all those games. Like the Duke game infuriated me. I was like, I picked Miami against Duke, and then they turned it over 8 times. And I'm like, I'm done, Miami, no more. So I'm gonna say A&M like you by 3 or 7, but if Miami wins, I'll start to think that Miami's a bit better.
Mm-hmm. Jackson disagrees with us. He thinks it's all about the U. Oh, you! It's all about the U. All right. We have the battle for the Cy Hawk Trophy, the game that makes me fall asleep every time I turn it on because there's no offense. Iowa and Iowa State.
There's a lot with this game. It's insane. For one thing, obviously, you've had the offseason news of everything that's happened with Iowa and Iowa State's players, and I'm not going to even get into it. Everyone knows what happened with all that. Then you've got our former presidents going to this game. So I'm like, okay, former president, why there's so many good games? Ole Miss, Tulane. You've got Bama, Texas, Iowa State. It's like the game that makes people that aren't fans of these two teams fall asleep. It's never good. I mean, last year it was 10-7 and Iowa State won. I was like, I picked Iowa State to win that game too. And I just kept expecting Iowa State to throw a pick 6 and lose, but no, they held on mercifully 10-7. And I'm just like, who's winning this year? I don't know. I was favored by 4, which feels about right, but it is in Jack Trice. It's at Ames. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't have any faith in either of these teams. I mean, McNamara, I trust a little bit better than Iowa State's QB, but I don't know. I guess Iowa by 3. I guess, 13-10.
Oh, man. Do you remember? Were you watching Mark's call with Corey last night on the?
Yes.
And he said, "Iowa took a knee and then punted against Penn State."
Oh man, he's hilarious. Corey's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm going Iowa by 3.
I was listening to that at work yesterday, man. I was cracking up. All right, I'm gonna go Iowa by 3, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there's not a lot of confidence here.
No confidence at all. All right.
UTEP could beat Northwestern, possibly.
Oh yeah. Is there any other good games? All right, we'll talk about App State, UNC.
I mean, this is a classic trap game. I mean, I feel like you would think North Carolina would be more aware since they almost blew it last year on the road in Boone. This time it's at Kenan Memorial Stadium in Chapel Hill. It's at home. I feel like that makes it, more likely that North Carolina will win this one. They're favored by 18. But it is a trap game still because of how they played, how they outperformed expectations against South Carolina. They could drop this game realistically. I'm not saying there's no way they can lose. They can lose. But if North Carolina's legit and like if they just go out there and play complimentary football, no turnovers, Drake May just plays mistake-free. And if North Carolina's defense, that's the key. Because last year they gave up 61 points to App State because that defense was complete air. This year, their defense had 9 sacks against South Carolina. So if they do that, okay, they're beating App State by 17-21. No problem.
I don't think Chase Bryce is still at App State, is he?
Don't think so.
Yeah, I'm going to go UNC by 14.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that's another thing. If Bryce was still there, it'd be there. I mean, Noel's back. You see his stats, 24 carry, 170-yard touchdown. He's really good at running back, Noel. But I'm thinking North Carolina's going to win by 17.
I have a sneaky feeling that SMU is going to give Oklahoma a fight.
If Tanner Mordecai was there, especially, that's the thing.
Oklahoma's defense last year was horrible.
Yeah, we don't know how good Oklahoma is either because of the fact that, they beat Arkansas State, I think, by a lot, and they're not very good. So, I don't know. I think that I think Oklahoma's going to win this one. I don't think they're going to lose, but like you said, it could be closer than we think. I'm going to go by Oklahoma by like 17.
Yeah, I'll go Oklahoma by 10.
Ooh,
Cincinnati and Pitt could be good.
CW.
The CW.
I'm like, how in the world? I got tweeted earlier today. If the CW can air games, just wait till MTV gets one. All right, like you have like MTV, we got football. Like, oh man, I don't even know if I could even bear that. But the CW, you know, a TV network shows a bunch of, TV shows about various things. Suddenly now has football. It's just out of play. I do have the CW, so I can watch this.
I want
but
to
it's
have Marvel
just-
characters be doing the halftime show, man.
Think about it. I mean, it's
Or is it, no,
insane.
it's DC. They have DC. Yeah, they have DC, not Marvel.
I mean, I don't know. I don't usually watch the CW, but it's insane. Jackson, maybe they'll have AC games on HGTV 2 years from now. Like right after, I'm a millionaire, buy this home show or whatever it is on there. Let's watch ACC football. It's insane. Jackson says it's better than One Tree Hill. Oh man, this is crazy. But I mean, this is just weird. I mean, the CW airing a football game, it's just weird. But I mean, realistically, if Luke Fickell was still at Cincinnati, I think we all would be picking Cincinnati. But he's gone. I mean, you never know.
Coach again, the coach from that was at Louisville.
Yes, Satterfield.
He's not good. I don't think he's good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, Pitt, they're not what they were with Kenny Pickett. Cincinnati's not what they were with Fickell. But, I mean, Pitt's fair only about 7.5. I mean, realistically, Cincinnati could win, but it is tough. It's technically at night, 6:30. It's a night game, and, it's tough to win at Heinz Field at night.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Pitt by about 7.
I'll go Pitt by 10. SMU Wake on HGTV.
I mean, hey, like I said, any network. I mean, VH1, Jackson mentioned. I mean, we can get like games on every network. I mean, I wouldn't even know what to do if some of these networks actually had football. It'd be broke. TV Land's got football.
Yeah, Pitt by 17, Jackson says. Oregon and Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that because everybody saw Tech lose to Wyoming, it makes you feel like this game's almost even more of a trap game. Because Oregon, they blew the doors off Portland State. It wasn't even close, like 73-7 or something like that. It just completely destroyed them. So, I mean, that helps Oregon in the fact that, okay, we beat, a team that we're supposed to beat by more than people were probably expecting us to beat them. So that gets our confidence up. But you're going on the road at Texas Tech, and it's a night game, and night games are different. So, that crowd's going to be loud. It's going to be insane. And again, a lot of people are probably going to be sleeping on Tech because they lost to Wyoming. And Wyoming's not a bad team, and that wasn't a difficult circumstance in week 1 to have to play that game. Tech can win this one. If I had to pick an upset game of the week, this would be probably one of the top, 2 games that I would be like, okay, if I'm picking an upset, it's Tech. They can win. I'm probably going to go with Oregon by 3 right now, but later in the week, I could change my mind. I'm really going to have to evaluate both these teams because Tech can win, but I'm going to go with Oregon by 3.
I don't know. I'm going to go Oregon by 7. I don't know. I think Bo Nix is just a lot better than Tyler Shugg. There's a reason that Oregon let Tyler Shugg go.
Which I agree with, but it is a road game. I mean, that's the thing. It's going to be tough. I know what you mean, though. He is – Bo Nix is really good. It's funny to me, Bo Nix to an extent, but Penix and Nix, people are like, okay, Penix is good, but he's injury prone, all that kind of stuff. And then Nix, he's mistake prone and all that. But now they go to Oregon and Washington, suddenly they're elite quarterbacks. It's like I knew Penix was great all along, but he just never got a shot to stay healthy at IU. But I knew he was great. With Nix, I wasn't so sure.
I didn't think his coaching was that good after Kenny Dillingham left, so.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
So, I mean, both are good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jacksonville State, Coastal. That's interesting. I think Coastal will win, but, man, that's a little sneaky there.
Yeah. UCF and Boise State. This is a good one.
Yes. I mean, especially because it's at Boise. And, I mean, UCF was great last week. I know they played Kent State. And I know Kent State's like an average MAC team, but man, they look good. They look
Well, all
really
their
good.
best players transferred out and their coach left. So, yeah.
And Boise, I mean, they're not what they were. I mean, they're not Boise from, the late 2000s when they were just fantastic and winning, major bowl games and everything. I mean, they're not what they were, but they're still good. Plumlee had 2 picks against Kent State too. He's a good quarterback, very dual threat, but he can be a little turnover prone sometimes. UCF and Jackson just said, "Why do I have a weird feeling UCF will lose the game? They can lose." I know
I think they're gonna. I'm gonna pick Boise.
I know, this is like Boise's last stand. Like they got to get some good wins if a conference is gonna want them. To move up better. Like if they're ever gonna join like a Big 12 or something eventually, they need to start stacking wins to remain really viable. Because Boise's fallen off; they're not what they were. But this is a game they can win. I don't know. I'm tempted to pick Boise too. I was originally gonna say UCF by like 7, but I don't know. I'm going to go UCF by 3, like the spread for now. But I think Boise can win. I might change my mind. I don't like saying I might change my mind, but it's so early in the week for these. Like I got to really look at these, man. UCF by 3, though.
I'll go Boise by 3.
Hey, it'd be a good game. It's going to be interesting. And look at this one. The NFL Network with Houston Rice. I mean, these games are just on crazy networks now. Like, what is happening? That's NFL. It's not college football networks. The NFL. Why is the NFL showing this game?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
They're crazy, man. All right, here we go. Wisconsin, Washington State.
That's a good game. I'm not gonna lie. It was a good game last year. Washington State upset them in Camp Randall, but you've got Fickle now. I know a lot of people were not super impressed with Wisconsin last week because, they looked okay against Buffalo, but they didn't just dominate. Like, I think a lot of people were kind of expecting them, especially through the air. Fickle said he's going to transform that offense. It just didn't look like they've completely done that yet. Washington State can win. Cam Moore had a good game last week. Granted, it wasn't against, massive competition or anything, but still, they can win this game. I'm tempted to pick them just like Boise. I'm going to go Wisconsin by 3. I think they'll win. But Washington State can win. It's a night game. It makes a difference. Crowd, it makes a difference.
Troy has UCF by 10 and Wisconsin by 14.
He's confident.
I don't know, man. I have a bad feeling that Tanner Mordecai is going to implode. Like, Tanner, he threw 2 picks against Buffalo, man. Like, Buffalo. I don't know. I think this will be a good game. I know. I picked Washington State in the Big Ten show, so I'm not going to change my pick. I don't want to be that guy that changes their pick, so I'm going to stick with Washington State. But I don't know, man. Wisconsin could just run it down their throat. But I'm going to stick with my pick.
Yeah, I'm not that guy either. I don't change my pick, and that's why I'm loosely saying these right now because, again, I'm going to really, when I make official predictions on these games, I'm definitely going to I stick to those picks. That's why those bowl games I got destroyed last year because I picked these games, and then what ended up happening, all those opt-outs happened, and I just got destroyed in the bowl picks. But, as of now, I'll go Wisconsin, but they could lose easily. Charlotte NBC. Charlotte and Maryland NBC. That's insane.
That's a meme. That is a meme. The Charlotte coach coached like a really high-level high school team in Baltimore. So that's kind of a fun game.
It is. I just can't believe it's on NBC though. Like it's the night game. The headline they'll be like Maryland and Charlotte, check it out on NBC at 7:30, and it's like, what about these other games like Texas, Bama that are going to destroy you in ratings? It's crazy.
Arizona and Mississippi State.
I like that game.
Yeah, it's a fun one in cowbell country.
Last year, Mississippi State went at Arizona, and I know some people were picking an upset there. I know a lot of people picked Arizona to win because it was in the desert. I went Mississippi State. They did win because Arizona, I just didn't feel was there yet with Jedd Fisch, and they weren't. They lost by, I think, like 17. So, I don't know. I think that this game will be fairly close, but I'm going to go with Mississippi State to pull away and win by 14 late.
Well, the thing for me is Mississippi State doesn't have Mike Leach anymore, and
I agree with that. I do agree with that. That's why it could be closer. But it's going to be tough for Arizona to do that with the Cowbells.
But Jedd Fisch, I don't know. They have to make a bowl this year, I feel like, for Jedd Fisch to keep his job. They're better than they were. I'm still gonna go Mississippi State by 7, but
there's a lot of games that in this week that a lot of just casual fans are like, what are you talking about? These aren't good games, but they're good games to us, the ones that pay attention to these games. It is a really good week of these type games. Not a lot of headliners. You got Bama, Texas, obviously, and a couple others, but these type games, there's tons of them.
Mm-hmm.
Temple, Rutgers. Going with Rutgers.
Yeah.
UCLA, San Diego State was kind of sneaky.
Yeah. I don't think San Diego is that good this year.
Probably not as good as they've been. Jackson says he wouldn't be surprised if they beat him. I mean, I would probably go UCLA by 10.
Yeah. I'm interested in this Auburn-Cal game.
Again, another one of those underrated games, and it's on ESPN. Finally, Cal's on ESPN. I remember the last time Cal was on ESPN. It was that Cal-Oregon game that a couple years ago, and that game was insane. Cal was at the goal line, first and goal, second and goal, third and goal, fourth and goal, and they just couldn't punch it in, and Oregon survived. I remember that game. I was pulling for Cal, so nothing against Oregon. I was like, come on, Cal. Come on, Will Cox. This is for your job. And lo and behold, over 2 years later, and it's still for his job, but he's still there. So I don't know. But that was a game. I have no idea. But this game, I mean, Auburn isn't the Auburn of old. They're not like they were under Gus Malzahn, and they've been pretty rough lately. But they've got Hugh Freeze, new coach. Freeze had success at Ole Miss and Liberty, so they're favored by 6.5. But it's tough to travel across the country. I remember when LSU had to travel to play UCLA, they couldn't get it done. So I mean, Auburn could lose. I'm going to go with Auburn by 7, though. Troy said I'm picking Cal at 3 just because I want to see that sad dog mask over Cal smile for once. Yeah, Oski's not usually happy lately. This isn't, Aaron Rodgers Cal or even Jared Goff Cal. It's just not, good.
Deshaun Jackson Cal, Marshawn Lynch Cal.
Yeah, they were even better than. But I'll go Auburn by 3 to 7. They'll win barely, but it's going to be close.
Cal looked good against North Texas, man. I'm like, okay, they might lose to North Texas, but they beat the doors off of North Texas.
Which is a good sign. I'm not going to lie. It's a good sign because a lot of people were picking upset there. I think a lot of people actually were picking, like you said, North Texas. I saw a lot of people picking them. So maybe. I'm still going Auburn for now.
And it's Blake Finley and Peyton Thorne. I don't think Auburn has a huge advantage there. I don't know. I'm going to go with Cal by 3. They'll probably lose, but.
And I might change my mind. I might get a little wily later in the week and pick Cal, but I'll go Auburn by 3 for now.
Cal the dumb spit. They did, man.
Yeah, they did. I mean, I look at the score because I was expecting it to be like a 10-point game or something like that. I saw Cal was at 25, 30. I was like, oof. That's pretty good. So they can win. I might change my mind on that one.
Auburn beat UMass, which isn't that impressive.
Yeah, and it was on ESPN. Those 2 SEC on ESPN games, you had Auburn and UMass and Texas A&M and New Mexico, and I'm like, come on, man, that's your lineup. What in the world? You got to find a better game than that to put on ESPN.
All right, our last game we're gonna pick is Oklahoma State and Arizona State. In the desert. That should be a good game.
Another good game here. I mean, this is very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mike Gundy's consistent, but I don't know about you, but I still feel like the Spencer Sanders transfer was one of the weirdest transfers of the offseason.
Mhm.
A lot of transfers you could see coming. It was expected. Like Sam Hartman going from Wake to Notre Dame makes sense. Okay, he graduated from Wake. It's in his last year, and he wants to play at a better program to have a shot to maybe do something. I get that. Sanders, though, he was the starting QB at Oklahoma State, didn't really have pressure to lose the job, and out of nowhere, he just transfers to Ole Miss. I don't understand that. So, Oklahoma State, you don't have Sanders. I mean, I don't know. They could lose. They're not as good as they were a few years ago, when they had Mason Rudolph and even with Sanders. I mean, they just don't look as good. But I'm going to go with Oklahoma State by 3. I think they'll win by around the spread. I mean, I might change mine again because to be fair, I didn't really watch Arizona State in week 1, so
They didn't look that good, but I know they were like missing players. I heard so. Yeah, I'm gonna go Oklahoma State by 7 as well.
Troy says picking Oklahoma State by 7 with only a 2-hour Dust Storm interruption. Hey, that's probably accurate.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming out. We had a nice little crowd tonight. It was a lot of fun. Being excited for week 2 for sure. Everyone enjoy Thursday night football for sure. NFL is going to start again. That'll be fun. And we'll see you guys later on Monday night, right after the Big Ten show on Jeffrey's channel. So that'll be a lot of fun. Come and check us out. Should be a good time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.